Good morning. My name is Charlotte Katie, and I am a counseling student at Bellevue University. Today we'll be talking about the ethics of dual relationships in counseling, which is riddled with ethical dilemmas. So, the definition of a dual relationship in counseling is a non-professional relationship in addition to a therapeutic relationship, or it can also be two professional relationships, such as a mentor and therapist, or a professional, non-professional relationship. This can include being friends, partners, business partners, something along those lines. And the ethical guidelines that currently stand is that it's not inherently unethical, and no guidelines prohibit dual relationships during or after treatment. And they become ethical when the potential for harm or exploitation arises. So previously in the counseling field, we thought it was risk management to decline dual relationships altogether. It was a little bit more conservative back then, but now it's a little more inflexible. As long as we're behaving ethically, we can be more open to crossing those boundaries when it benefits the client. So it should be in the best interest of the client. After therapy, it may affect if they will want to see you after they've sought treatment, because now you're friends. So it should also be mutually agreed upon, and the therapist should proceed with caution. And honestly, we need to be asking ourselves, do the benefits outweigh the risks? And my opinion is frequently, probably not. But in the case of cultural considerations, some Asian cultures find self-disclosure to a stranger a taboo practice. The therapist might need to take some time and build a relationship that's a little less clinical, a little less sterile, in order to reach Asian cultures or someone from a different culture than the white standard culture. So yeah, they would benefit from a dual relationship to promote intimacy. And in African American communities, they often expect warmth and friendliness and being outgoing, maybe something where our overly clinical attitudes can be off-putting and be a barrier to receiving the help that they need. So here's some of my reactions and thoughts while reading the chapter. My initial reaction was a very strong opposition to any dual relationship. It made me realize that I'm a little bit more conservative than I expected when it comes to boundaries and crossing those boundaries. I work at a psych hospital where it's really frowned upon to cross boundaries just for safety reasons. So it really kind of opened my eyes to the different levels of crossing boundaries and what might be more conservative than what even the ethical guidelines suggest. And in my opinion, friendship is a two-way relationship where the therapist cannot remain objective. Often in friendships, things happen and we might get into a fight. I don't know any friendships that I have that haven't had some kind of argument along the way. That's just part of a friendship. And often, yeah, that therapist cannot remain objective because of the messiness of being friends with someone. And our job as a therapist is to remain objective. That's the whole point of seeing somebody for therapy. They're an objective third party in your life that you could come to for your problems. And if they have a non-objective relationship with you, it might affect the therapist relationship. And sure, it might be for the client benefit, but if friendship's a two-way street, we're not obligated to sacrifice our boundaries to please them. I think being friends with someone just for their benefit is not a really great example of setting boundaries in general, especially if it's something we don't really want. So our goal should not be to please them or give them time and care outside of the therapeutic space. And that's a case-by-case basis, but I can only imagine I would be very tired at the end of these long days to give extra time outside of therapy. And as I said previously, it's hard to imagine that the benefits would outweigh potential harm. And people are often unpredictable. You don't really know somebody until you know somebody. And it depends on the diagnosis and severity of mental health issues. I would probably not make any friends at the behavioral health hospital, just for the sake of keeping them safe. And like said previously, they may continue to seek treatment after termination. In my personal experience, I've had an old best friend that frequently seeks treatment at my workplace. This has made it a gray area, definitely. She's attended my sessions. I anticipate her to continue getting hospitalized. Once I called her to check on her, and it didn't really end up good. And I have these complex emotions against her, such as anger for, how her treatment is going and how she's taking responsibility for it. So that would likely affect the therapeutic space if I bring that anger with me. So for the sake of boundaries and safety, I just decided to end the dual relationship and keep my space from her, to protect my own boundaries. And I would never exploit her, but it still feels inappropriate. And that's what surprised me about the text, is that they don't want people to exploit their clients as friends, but I don't see that as a concern. My concern more is emotional boundaries and safety, and protecting our energy, because therapy is really draining work, or it can be. And client attraction, it happens. Counseling's a vulnerable space. I don't think counselors need to feel any shame about it. Just be aware of countertransference and be able to detach or compartmentalize mentally. Exhibit self-control in your body language. Try not to flirt with them in any way through your tone or facial expressions. You should not disclose affection or attraction to any client. There's too much room for misinterpretation or re-traumatizing them in some way. And if the client expresses attraction, the transference might be able to be explored in a safe space, and the counselor should take the time to set those boundaries. And if it continues to be an issue, explore alternatives while explaining to the client why a referral is the best course of action. And those are my references. But as a side note, I've taken interest into these crossing boundaries, and the second I did that, the therapeutic crossing boundaries to take risks, I let a 79-year-old man grab my hand and he kissed it. So I don't think I'm going to be doing that anymore.